We have reached the off season in our draft only franchise on NBA 2K24, which means it's time to take a look at the draft. And we're going to start here with the combine reports and taking a look here at some sprint times. It looks like Bernie Newman could be somebody we could keep our eye on. The first couple of guys are guys we've already put on our board. Doyle is another guy we don't know about. Jonathan Marshall as well. Could be somebody we look to scout a little bit more come pre-draft workout. Lane agility, Pearson, Barrett, Newman, who we just talked about. Kennedy, we know all these guys. Damian Evans comes up again as one of the more athletic guys. Vertical, Otis Finley, and then Guy Harrison. Talked about him briefly in the last episode. Dean Ellis we know of. Shannon Stewart we know of. Dean Ellis comes up again. Guy Harrison as a jumper, which is surprising because his ratings suggest he's not a good jump shooter. But it looks like he can shoot a little bit in that mid-range. Gregor Hammonds. Somebody that's going to go towards the top of this class. Ricky Taylor we're familiar with. J.C. Carpenter, somebody I like in the second round as a stretch four. Leads this category of the moving college threes. Jimmy Paul. He can score a bit. Also has some potential. Okay, Jimmy. We see you all NBA upside. Put him on the draft board for sure. Irvin Edwards here, one of my favorite ready now prospects that we could maybe trade up for should he slip a bit. Jerry Childress, I think one of the better players in this class, of course. Top 5 for sure. Damian Evans has shown up a few times. So we'll definitely get some extra scouting on him prior to the draft. He can shoot the rock and he's got some athleticism to him. And there we have it. Got a few guys that we can add to the draft board here, or at least get a little bit more scouting on ahead of the draft with our free agent, or sorry, our pre-draft workouts. Bernie Newman was somebody that we wanted to get to know more about here. In terms of point guards, it was, I just took their name down. It was somebody that could shoot. It was Damian Evans. There we go. Wanted to get to know more about Damian Evans as well. And then we'll also get some more scouting. The other guy, Jonathan Marshall, that we liked from the combine, we already had him at 100%. So let's just find some other guys that we don't have at 100%. We'll scout them up. And then we will be ready to start the NBA draft. And it's a draft I am very, very excited for. With our number 2 pick, and then we have multiple seconds. I'm definitely looking to try to trade up and get a second first round pick with our multiple seconds. Probably later into the first, so it can be cheap enough for us to not have to give up too much. But here we go. I think we are ready to officially kick off the NBA draft. And now we've officially made it here for the NBA draft, and I am excited. We've done a ton of research for this draft. We're ready to hop into it. And with the first overall pick, the Bulls do select J.R. Holloway, the forward from Texas Tech. No surprise here. He was the consensus number 1 guy all throughout this season. And I think he is the best player in the class. I think the consensus was right. He's a guy who can absolutely be a good scorer. I don't think he's quite maybe projects to be, the bona fide number 1, everything runs through me at the next level kind of guy, but I think he can be part of a really good duo. And the Bulls, I think, lack some pieces that you can, definitely say long-term, this is one of our guys, and now they don't lack that anymore with J.R. Holloway. I think he can be a very important piece for a really good team in the future. We've received 21 offers for our pick. This is a draft-only franchise. There's no use in entertaining them when we can get who I think is the consensus number 2 player in the draft, and he's certainly my number 2. He has projected the highest overall of anybody in this draft class. played power forward for the national champion Virginia squad, and he's not somebody that's going to be a superstar someday. You know, this isn't the guy, the all upside guy. There are some upside guys in the class, but Andre Stevens, he projects to be the most impactful day one player in this class. And for a team that went 8-74 last year, I think getting day one impact is very important. And not to say that he doesn't have any upside at all. He's not a guy that's going to come in and already be ready made. He just, maybe he's not going to turn into maybe the 1B alongside Sidney Lowry, but I think he can be a key starter that could just contribute all over the court. Right now, his best attributes are his inside the arc scoring. Doesn't really need the ball a lot to get his points on the board. I think he defends hard. He rebounds. Got 5 badges. He has that all-star ceiling. So like I said, just because we're not taking, you know, the highest upside player doesn't mean we're taking a player with no upside here. And I think Andre Stevens is going to be a really crucial part to this rebuild, even if I don't think he's going to be maybe the second best player in this rebuild after Sidney Lowry or anything like that. Relentless willingness to dive after loose balls. That's the kind of player I want. And Gregor Hammonds goes 3 to the Spurs. Wow, okay. This is way high for Gregor Hammonds in my book. Kind of like with Andre Stevens, the Spurs are going for somebody that can help out right away. My issue with this is he's a lot older. He played all 4 years at UNLV, and he does not have the same kind of all-star upside that you see with Andre Stevens. He's also not as good right now. What Hammonds is a 3-level bucket getter from day one, and I think long-term, what I see from Hammonds is somebody that can be, you know, a heat check guy off the bench and can just put up a bunch of points in a hurry. I don't think you can reliably start this guy. And picking that at 3, I think is just a little bit too high for what you're getting there. Not to say Hammonds is a bad player. I think he's really solid. He's one of the most pro-ready guys. I just think with that age and that lack of upside, it's a bit early there for San Antonio. They're looking to win now around Victor Wembanyama, it looks like. Looks like we have a trade, and Sabonis and Barnes are going to, I think that's the Pelicans, right? Who have the Bucks pick, if I remember right. So the Pelicans say, we have enough, you know, young guys. Let's go get a center in Sabonis. I don't love the Sabonis and Williamson fit. And the Kings take Miles. I actually will think Miles is a better fit alongside Zion, but he's going to Sacramento, who traded De'Aaron Fox in the middle of the season, and now in the offseason have traded Sabonis for a full-fledged rebuild in Sacramento. And Gus Miles, I think this is actually a good spot for him. He's going a little bit higher than where he was projected to by the end of the, you know, draft cycle. But in the beginning of the draft cycle, he was a projected top 5 player. He goes there, and I think if you're looking at Gus Miles, you're kind of looking at like what we have in AC Stevens, but with better upside and just kind of a maybe premium AC Stevens, which is the kind of center that I think works really well in 2K and I think is a good start to the rebuild in Sacramento. And yeah, they're going full rebuild at this stage. Thunder now on the clock. They go Warren Riley, and this is somebody I don't even have highlight clips of. I didn't think Warren Riley was worth a pick this high in the draft. We'll have to see what that upside is. I feel like the Thunder are usually pretty good at identifying upside, so his potential might be better than I gave it credit for. I just don't see it with Warren Riley this high in the draft. I think he doesn't really have much of an NBA skill set right now, and I don't think he has the upside to really gain much of one. Philip Barrett is somebody that I think is a good pick here at 6. He was definitely on the short list of who I thought were kind of the best players available, and Barrett projects as an on-ball guard. He can do some work off ball as well, but I think he feels best when the ball is in his hands. He's a pretty good shooter, especially from the mid-range, but he definitely has 3-point range as well. He can pass it. He can create a shot off the dribble. More of an offensive player right now, but should he be able to translate into a point guard down the road? He has excellent size for that. Not terrible size for the 2 either, just a little bit light, I think. And so not going to be much of an interior threat. But I think that's a good pick by the Sonics. Now, here was the player that I actually think is the third best player in the class. The first two players, I think, win at the first two picks, but then I think the Rockets here get a steal in Jerry Childress. Now, they've got Jalen Green on the roster, but I think he's a restricted free agent. Does this mean they're going to let Green go? I don't really know, but what Jerry Childress is the best shooter in this class, I think, by a pretty significant margin. He has a very quick release and does the majority of his work off the ball, in contrast to a guy like Barrett, who is just drafted. But just because he's the best shooter in the class doesn't mean that's all he does. I think he can also score inside. He also has a really good upside. Our scouts project him to have all NBA potential should he reach his upside. A little bit undersized and a little bit old would be kind of the things there. Matthew Mullins goes to the Nets. I think this is a really big reach. Probably, I'd say this is even a bigger surprise than Hammond's at 3. I just don't see it with Mullins. Brian Campbell, what is going on, dude? The league is taking center early and often. He's the second top 10 pick by the Bulls. I think they nailed their first one. I think they missed here with Brian Campbell. Another guy I don't have any highlight clips for here going in the top 10. I thought I had the top 10 pretty well represented, but it's like half these guys I didn't get clips for because I just didn't think they were good enough to go in the top 10. It looks like the Sonics are unloading some salary with Strus and Jeremy Grant to get into the top 10 here. And they go JC Carpenter. What is going on, man? I liked JC Carpenter in this class, but I liked him in the second round. He's another guy who starts out at a pretty good overall. I think he can contribute to a team's rotation year one as kind of a stretch 4. He just doesn't have enough upside to be a top 10 pick at all. So I like the move from Seattle to dump some salary. I think Strus and Jeremy Grant for the top 10 pick is a steal for Seattle. I just think they didn't make the best use. So kind of like Chicago, I liked one of their picks, but not the other. Guy Harrison is an absolute athletic freak and can score inside quite well. He's one of 2 players that have projected Hall of Fame upside in this class. Should he reach it, he's got great positional size as well at 6'10" at small forward. I just think apart from his inside scoring, very, very much so a project. He's just an uber athlete that can get those highlight dunks. Got the mohawk that is going to help him make those flashy dunks too, I guess. Quincy Carter, I think, is a pretty solid player for Los Angeles, and scouting him, I don't have clips. Again, it feels like it's been forever since we had somebody drafted that I have clips on, but I think he's a solid pick. He was on my board, just kind of missed the threshold for somebody that I thought I would actually draft, and so I didn't put any clips, but I think he's got kind of a decent amount of upside. The Jazz are trading for DeMar DeRozan, and they're giving up the 13th pick and a 2028 first. The Clippers are offloading salary. Now that's important, and they're taking Irvin Edwards. I do have clips of him, and Irvin Edwards was somebody that I really liked in this class. He's another one of kind of the older prospects. We've seen a lot of them go, but that have that high overall, ready to contribute now, but maybe not the greatest upside. But of all those players, I liked Irvin Edwards the best because I think his skill set year one is the best. He's got two-way impact upside in terms of can score at all 3 levels, but particularly from beyond the 3-point line. And then he's also a really good defender. And so even if he's not going to get that much better, I think he can already kind of be a player that can contribute right now and doesn't need, a ton of upside to be a positive impact player. And so I think the Clippers got a good one. Also offloaded salary. We have their first round pick next year, and so them offloading salary, they might go for a free agent, which makes that pick worse, of course. AJ Kennedy goes next. I think he's a really solid guard. Now, San Antonio picked a really good point guard in last year's draft. So it looks like they might just be drafting Kennedy. I bet he's just going to be a backup on this team. Honestly, I think when I look at Kennedy, I see just a really well-rounded, solid prospect with not great upside. And I think, future backup point guard is his best role. And so getting to the point of the draft where if you can get a contributor, even if it is as a backup, it's not a terrible pick. I think there were better selections available. Teague here, solid player. I didn't get clips of him. I think his upside was a little bit too low for me, but I think he's got some solid two-way abilities. Enormous upside is what this guy says, so maybe I was wrong there. Craig Pearson, another guy I do have clips on here. Going to the Toronto Raptors. He was one of the point guards I had on my short list that I would trade up for. Absolute defensive menace of a guard. Kind of think Wilson Fisher of who we had on our team this last year and who we'll have next year too. Just maybe a little bit higher of an upside, Wilson Fisher kind of. Offensively, he's not going to take a lot of shots. He's not a spectacular passer either, and what his upside is really kind of a debate as to what he can be offensively, because defensively, yeah, he's going to be a tough guy for the opposing point guard every night. And Toronto likes their defensive guys, so I like the fit with the Raptors here. Ricky Taylor. All right, so now we're starting to see some guys I'm more familiar with going down the board. Ricky Taylor, another one that I was targeting with one of my second-round picks, though. So some of these guys I liked in the second round, going off the board earlier than I would have hoped. Taylor, he's a young player. That's one of the pros for him. But even with that youth, there's still some questions as to his upside. Right now, he's kind of a jack-of-all-trades player. Doesn't have anything that you can look at and be like, yes, he's really good at that. And then with the limited upside, you were questioning if he can get there. But he also has pretty much a lack of weaknesses in his game. And I think he's at a point where he could play on an NBA bench in year one. Very highly touted recruit, and he just wasn't as productive at Duke as many would have hoped. But I think still a good player to have. Now, we're going to be trying to trade up for the number 18 overall pick, because there is a player that I thought would be going kind of in the back half of the top 10, and we're now here in the late teens. And this is the trade I constructed while I was showing you guys the clips of that last pick, and it wasn't enough. So we got to keep workshopping it a bit. And that was enough. All right, so we have traded away Maxwell Lewis and some picks to get back up into this draft. We now have the 18th pick. Now, there's a player that I really like, but there are a couple players that have gone off the board recently that I like as well. So what I want to do here is I want to put this 18th pick to see if, we could maybe add a second and get one of the guys that I like a Irvin Edwards I would maybe do for this pick in a second. But it doesn't look like anybody's offering anybody that's been taken. So no, 18 is not going to be enough for this pick. 18 is not going to get us a trade that I want, excuse me. So we will stick and pick. One guy that's actually pretty interesting that wasn't on my mind is George Constantine. The guy I was thinking of when I made this trade, though, was Christian Davidson. He's top 5 ranked player in the class. Yes, his win now ability is not there. He's going to be a 69 overall, but he's got Hall of Fame upside. And despite the fact that he's only 69 overall, he's not like horrible at anything besides post defense, right? You're seeing C's and B's on his draft card. And I just think with us having just taken Andre Stevens, who we maybe took someone with a little bit less upside than some of the guys on the board, but was really win now ready, I think pairing him with a guy like Christian Davidson in this class is perfect, because we got the guy, the best year one player in the class, and now we can get the guy that can maybe be the best player in this class 5 years from now. And I truly believe Christian Davidson can be that. I think he's got some abilities as a combo guard. I think shooting guard is his primary position, but I think he can play some point. I don't know if you want to make that his primary focus in his developments, but I think it's a really good player. But George Constantine being here is also interesting. He's much better now. That's 6 overalls better. His potential is still solid. It's not anything great. He has 4 badges compared to Christian Davidson, who has 0. He still has all-star ceiling, but that's like 2 tiers below Hall of Fame. It goes Hall of Fame, then All-NBA, then All-Star, then Starter. And I think you just got to take the highest upside player in this class in Christian Davidson. George Constantine, I think, will be a solid player, but I think Christian Davidson has the chance to be the best in this class, and he's here at 18. I got to take him. Maybe our scouts were wrong and he doesn't have that much of an upside, but Sean Devaney here seems to be sold on his upside as well. And so I think this is a perfect 1-2 complement. Like I said, packaging Andre Stevens with Christian Davidson in this draft I think is really good. And Harry Barkley is another player that I think is a solid pick here by Golden State. Murray Park was another guy that I thought was maybe a good second round pick. He goes a little bit earlier than I would have liked. But with us trading up for Christian Davidson, which I was not planning for, I was planning on trading up for a point guard. We are basically pigeonholed into hoping that the guy I want falls to us. Because there's only one point guard left that I think is a good selection. Dean Ellis, I think, is a good center. Another one of those kind of older, high overalls but low upside guys. But he was the front court mate with Andre Stevens on the national champion Virginia team. Don't know much about this Utah State guy. Don't know much about Ray Ewing either. Jazz are on the clock. And they've traded for CJ McCollum. Interesting. So the Jazz are trading for some vets. And the Sonics are offloaded a lot of salary in this class, which is interesting ahead of this free agency. Free agency does have some good players available, but more importantly than that, George Constantine is still on the board. That's actually interesting because he was not who I was planning on taking, and we really need to take a point guard in this class. Now, Christian Davidson, I said I didn't love his developing as a point guard specifically. I think it's better to develop him as a 2, but George Constantine being here might change things. However, Sam Hudson is the guy that I wanted as our second pick all along. I thought Sam Hudson would be the guy that we'd trade up to around pick 20 to get. Turns out he falls to 33 to us, so all is well there. Hudson, a pretty good scoring guard. Solid size at 6'3", a little bit older as well, but he does still have some upside. He actually isn't a guy who's already kind of hit his cap, which is good because he doesn't project to have a great overall from year one or anything, but he could score a bit. His tendencies are actually what made me like him above a lot of the other point guards in this class. As we see, that's not a clip of him, but he's projected to have a dish to open man tendency of 74, which is really, really good. As you can see, the position average is nearly 20 less. And so that's a really important tendency for point guards. And so he has 4 badges as well. Has Tim Hardaway All-NBA upside, which getting that in the second round I think is really, really good. And so even though I like George Constantine as a player, I think Sam Hudson need a point guard, and I think Hudson can be that for us. And there you go. That's how we're gonna do this. We have one more pick in the second round. I'm not gonna make you look at all the second round picks. Constantine did go, which is unfortunate. There's a center that I really liked, and Shannon Stewart, and he went as well. There's a different Stewart here, and Chuck Stewart. But the 2 guys I was hoping were here would be here or not here. Chad Duncan looks like a pretty solid player. Reynolds may only have scouted at 2%, so probably not that. Duncan doesn't have a ton of upside though, but he has C. McCarthy here. Not sure about that. I'll take a look and I'll show you who we end up drafting. Bernie Newman was somebody that we liked his combine. Our scouts are a little bit higher as to his scoring ability than consensus, so that's a little bit worrying. And he doesn't have a ton of upside, but he is probably one of the shortlist options for us. Chad Duncan is somebody else that I think is a shortlist option, or maybe Andrews. He has some solid 3-point scoring, but probably Chad Duncan. I think we just have scouted him a little bit better, and he's a good rebounder. Also doesn't have the greatest upside, but Miles Turner wouldn't be a bad player. Can maybe shoot the 3 a little bit, so probably between Newman and Duncan here. At the end of the day, I think we really need a third big on our team, and so we're going to draft Chad Duncan here out of Santa Clara with the 44th pick, and that will be our last. He showed tremendous quickness with the fastest time and lane agility. He said that the whole combine, but that's no way. It had to be out of centers, right? So here we are. The draft is over. Jarrett Holloway ends up actually being a little bit worse than projected. Although, no, it's 76 minus 1. So he is a true 77. He just, I guess, isn't a big fan of having gone to the Bulls. He obviously wanted to come here. He has, like, you know, the orange hair. Or is it red hair for the Bulls? I don't know. Has that A potential, though. Just the 2 badges, but I think it's a really good pick with that A potential. Now, Andre Stevens, you know, higher overall right now. Pretty well-rounded skill set, but the B+ potential is a bit lower than that A. And so that was the trade-off. You get a better player, but you get the worse upside. I would have gone Jarrett Holloway had we had the number 1 pick, or had Chicago decided to go somewhere else. But there you have it. Gregor Hammonds, 78 overall. Pretty high overall. Like I said, look at that scoring ability. B potential, he might actually get a little bit better. I think our scouts projected that to be B-, but it's not going to be very much. Gus Miles here. Pretty solid starting point in terms of his overall. Excellent defensive center. Can score inside the arc a little bit as well with B+ potential, which I think is actually a little bit lower than our scouts projected. I still think that's a good pick. Warren Riley, B+ potential, sure. I just don't think he's very good. Barrett is actually a little bit worse of a 3-point shooter than I thought, but does have A- potential. Excellent mid-range shooter. Jerry Childress here, 74 overall. Excellent shooter. B+ potential, I actually thought our scouts thought it was going to be higher than that, but has a lot of badges. I still think it's a good pick. Mullins here from the Nets has a high overall, so kudos to them, but just B potential. That's not very good for a top 10 pick, I'd say. There's plenty of guys with potential down the board. Brian Campbell. Again, I think we were right in saying that wasn't a great pick. Carpenter's a much worse 3-point shooter. I think he was projected at B, and it's only C, and he's not going to get very much better. Harrison, 75 overall is pretty good. But I mean, apart from that inside scoring, what can he do? He can defend a little bit. He's an excellent athlete. A- potential, though. Quincy Carter. Oh my goodness. Have you ever seen just like a more perfectly balanced, like that whole screen was C+ except for 1 B- with some upside too. So I think that's a solid pick by the Lakers. And Irvin Edwards is actually even better than I thought. I think he was predicted to have A 3-point scoring, but only B+ perimeter defense, and it's A. Only the B potential. But again, like if you already have A perimeter defense and A 3-point scoring, I think you can already be a solid player at the NBA, and you don't need to get much better. Just probably get some badges, honestly. Kennedy's solid. Teague. These ratings are actually pretty solid here. If he has upside too, like the guy said, it's only B potential. So I was right. This guy didn't have as much. But I still think that's a good pick. Maybe a little bit undersized for it too, but Greg Pearson, the elite defender that everybody said he was, the elite athlete that everybody said he was. And then I think he has like a high boom potential, but his regular potential is not very good. So we'll see if he can hit his boom potential. Ricky Taylor, solid player all around, not the greatest upside, but only 19 years old and starting at 75. Christian Davidson, he actually is 1 overall higher, and that's because he's a better shooter. I think both mid-range and 3-point are higher than he was projected, which is good for his ability to maybe contribute early. A+ potential on Christian Davidson, the only one we've had in the class so far. I thought it was crazy that he was all the way down at 18, even with his low overall starting point, because the guy was upside. Like there's no reason he was a top 5 projected player other than his upside. And so I had confidence it was going to be an upside. A+ is something else. And that Hall of Fame ceiling that the draft showed, looks like that was true. B+ B+ for Harry Barkley's pretty good. Murray Park, solid post defender and shooter, but not great potential. Butler, just a 68 overall with B-. That's an awful pick by the Clippers. Vaughn, 74 overall. Good mid-range guy, B potential. We're getting to the point of the draft where B potential is not that bad, though. A- potential for the Thunder here. Reed McDaniels, 6'0". B- potential, not a good pick. Chandler. Mid-range and 3-point scorer, post defender, B potential, okay. Dean Ellis starts at 76 overall. He can block shots, but not a great rebounder despite being 7'2". McKinley. And shoot the rock a bit. Not a great defender, but he has some upside. Solid pick. Interesting pick, at least, for the Grizzlies. Brady, solid scorer. With B+ potential. That's a good pick for Orlando. Cooper. Score a bit. B potential. Not bad. Ewing. Not bad. Dante Palmer, 6'1". More of a playmaker. B- potential. Owen Allen. Another OKC pick. Oof. Don't love that with B- potential. And now into the second round, we have our pick, Sam Hudson. His 3-point shooting is not as good as we thought it was, which is unfortunate. I think it was projected at B+, maybe A-, I can't remember. B- is much worse. He does have B+ potential though, which is good. You're gonna need it. Disappointing that his 3-point shot's not as good as we thought. Of course, has the 4 badges as well. Now let's take a look at George Constantine. Ends up being only 73 overall, so a bit worse, but still an excellent 3-point shooter with B potential. I think that's a solid pick with the 4 badges as well. I'm not going to show you every second round pick, but if there's anyone else that's notable, then I will show you said player. But I think there was a couple good guards here at the top of the second round. Jimmy Paul here is pretty good. B+ potential. Kind of an undersized 2 guard, but he's a combo guard. It could score a bit too, so I like that pick from San Antonio. A little bit of a B+ here from the Kings, though a very low overall, but has some upside to it. And this is pretty much gonna do it for everybody in this class. There were a few solid second round picks, but mostly guys that I don't think are gonna be much in the league. J.R. Holloway, of course, at number 1 overall. Our guy Andre Stevens at number 2. Overall, I think we had a really good draft class. Now, in terms of signing our rookies, I would end up not offering a contract to Chad Duncan, and the number 1 reason is because Shannon Stewart, who we see is not being signed by the Pistons, is somebody that I think will just be a little bit better of a third center option for us, and I think I'll just offer him in UDFA. And so we'll sign our other 3 picks, though. Obviously, we definitely want to keep all those guys. Now, talking about team options here, there are no player options, so we get to decide on everybody here. I think Wilson, Thorpe, and Baldwin are all easy, except Robinson. It's obviously a lot of money, but he could still be a good mentor. Shelton and Livingston are easy no's. I think ultimately we will accept Robinson here. Allow him to be a mentor. I think him mentoring Christian Davidson for a year will be very valuable for our team. Here's a look around the league at the top accepts and declines around the league. In terms of our first round of free agency here in Moratorium 1, we would end up signing Shannon Stewart, like I said I wanted to. We'd also be getting 2 mentors now. Talked about last offseason about the possibility of adding mentors, and we are doing it this year. My rule here is I need 13 draft-only eligible players, and then I can fill the last 2 spots with mentors. And we're doing that with Ricky Rubio for Sam Hudson and Tristan Thompson for Andre Stevens this offseason. In addition to that, we'd end up re-signing Zaire, Moses, and Jalen Johnson as well. What this means is we will not be bringing back Bruce Brown. It's just too crowded of a wing room for him. this year. Now let's go ahead and look at free agency around the league. Jason Tatum will remain on the Celtics, so they get to keep their best player. Giannis stays with the Pistons, so that Pistons, what they gave up is starting to look really good, as they'll get Giannis for the next 4 years. Jimmy Butler for 2 years with the Mavericks. Donovan Mitchell for 3 years, going over to replace LeBron James, who retired. On the Lakers, Mobley returns. Kyrie Irving replaces Jimmy Butler, so Jimmy and Kyrie just switched. Jalen Brunson goes to the Clippers now. We have their pick, and when they got off of DeMar DeRozan, we knew this was a possibility. It just sucks to see the Clippers get a really good free agency right ahead of their pick. Cade stays on the Pistons, and then the Sonics get 2 restricted free agents. Scotty Barnes not retained by Toronto, and Jalen Green not retained by Houston. I think the Sonics just got a lot better this offseason. They got off a ton of bad contracts, had an okay draft, but I think absolutely nailed the 2 of the brightest young free agents around. Markkanen stays with the Jazz, Harden with the Sixers, B.I. with the Pelicans, Middleton with the Cavs. Şengün also goes to the Sonics. I mean, they nabbed all these restricted free agents that just became a really good, exciting young team. I love what the Sonics did this offseason, if I'm being honest. In terms of available, there's still some really good guys available, so I'll simulate this last day, and we'll see where some of the top guys go, because I assume they're going to sign 1-year deals here on this last day and maybe go for a bigger contract next year. That's exactly what would happen. Blazers signing Jamal Murray is really stupid, but the Spurs get Giddey, Franz Wagner to the Bulls. Also kind of stupid because he's going to play over J.R. Holloway now. So a couple really dumb signings on day 12 that I don't like, unfortunately, but that's just how it be sometime. But those, and then Ball are kind of the biggest signings here of day 12. And now we're at an offseason spot that I have been looking forward to so much. Free agency does play an impact on our team, and certainly there were a couple of really big moves in the NBA, but other than the draft, and maybe even including the draft, player progression might be the most important step of the entire offseason. And oh my goodness, we are seeing a whole lot of green, much like we thought we would. Sidney Lowry goes up 5 overall points, up to an 87, and goes from 11 badges to 28. I gotta see these badges. Silver catch and shoot, challenger, clamps, corner, guard up, hyperdrive, bronze acrobat, agent 3, ankle bases, ankle breaker, bailout, chase down, claymore, comeback, deadeye, comeback's gonna be sweet. Fast twitch, glove, handles for days, interceptor, off-ball pass, open looks, pick dodger, posterizer, slippery off-ball, slithery, space creator, spot finder, workhorse. My goodness. He should be so much better this season. There's no way we're going 8-74 with a player this good. There's just no way. Andre Stevens, of course, is a rookie. Moses Moody gets 2 badges. His mid-range goes up 1. His 3-point goes up 2 points. Perimeter defense up 1. Playmaking up 1. Rebounding up 1. We didn't even talk about Sidney Lowry's stats. Inside scoring goes up 1. Mid-range scoring goes up 1. 3-point scoring goes up 2. Playmaking goes up 2. Rebounding goes up 1. IQ goes up 1. Stays at his A potential. Zaire Williams to 3 badges. I think he had those 3 badges, so no additional badges for Zaire. 3-point scoring goes up a spot, as does perimeter defense, as does IQ. Jalen Johnson stays at his overall, but his 3-point does get a little bit better, as does his physicals and his IQ. I think he's going to be a really good backup power forward for us this year. AC Stevens up 3 and gets up to 7 badges. Now has silver rebound chaser, bronze back down, box out, dream shake, masher, post lockdown, and rise up. Inside defense goes up 1. Rebounding goes up 1. Perimeter defense goes up 1. IQ goes up 1. Nothing in his scoring goes up at all. That's fine. I think he was fine scoring, honestly, until he kind of got hurt a bit. Patrick Baldwin, 3 badges. He's got silver claymore and corner specialist and bronze catch and shoot. This guy's going to be a shooter. Inside scoring goes up 1. Mid-range up 1. 3-point up 1. Perimeter defense up 1. IQ up 1. Fisher up to 8 badges. Wow. He's going to be competing with Sam Hudson for our starting point guard spot, but that mentorship of Ricky Rubio really helped. You're seeing some of these dimer, needle threader. He didn't get relay passer, which I'm pretty sure was the third one, which is interesting, but that's fine. He got help with 2 badges from Ricky Rubio. His overall goes up 1, but nothing across the board went up 1 at all. Thorpe goes up just 1 overall. Inside defense up 1. I think there's going to be a battle for backup center, and it's going to happen in Summer League. Robinson goes down 3, but what I'm really interested to see, he still has good badges. I think he can mentor Christian Davidson pretty easily with those badges. Tristan Thompson, he doesn't do anything, and he's still got good badges. That's going to be a mentor for AC Stevens. Then we got rookie, and then Ricky Rubio, who still has really good badges to mentor Sam Hudson. So, all in all, I think a very, very successful offseason. And now the last thing we're going to talk about in this episode is Summer League. And I was debating whether or not to make the Summer League its own video once again. Decided ultimately to go against it, as I'm really excited to kick off next season. I want to get that done as soon as possible. I ended up bringing Constantine into our Summer League team, but Andre Stevens was very, very solid. I think kind of what I thought about him pre-draft was confirmed here. He was very, very good. Didn't, dominate by any means. Shot very well. AC Stevens, I will say, was still our best player. I thought AC Stevens was a better player in your Summer League than Andre Stevens, but we have a Stevens front court, which I just barely realized right now as I'm trying to talk about the difference between them. So the Stevens brothers, it's got to be the front court nickname we have for these two, with Sid the Kid Lowry in the back court, is going to be what we're building around. And Hudson really struggled, only shot 32%. Davidson I thought was actually pretty good. At 13.7 points per game on 40 some odd percent shooting. So I think it might be tough for Sam Hudson to get playing time. I think Wilson Fisher definitely earned the starting job at point guard. He was very good defensively in the Summer League. Didn't shoot that well himself either, but he shot better than Hudson, and Hudson's whole thing is his shooting, whereas Wilson adds a lot more outside of his shooting. Davidson takes a lot of shots, I'll say that, as you can see here with his field goal attempts. And he's not particularly high rated, so he might be in danger of shooting a lot at a low percentage here in his rookie year. That's certainly something we should be looking out for. Stevens is pretty solid from 3, actually, shooting 36%. If he can do that at the NBA, I think we're going to be very happy. Constantine was pretty good. I tried to sign him to a 2-way deal or something, or just sign him after the free agency, but I couldn't do it. Somebody had already picked him up. I can't remember who. But he shot a lot, and he shot pretty well in Summer League for us. So I think if I had to take one big takeaway from Summer League, is that this team is just going to be more fun for me to watch in this third season. I think by the end, I was just kind of done watching this team. It felt like the same story over and over again, where we'd be competitive for a quarter and then just give all these games away. I think it's just going to be a more enjoyable experience watching the Nashville Sound here in Season 3. Stevens is a really solid player. I think he's going to raise our floor. We'd end up losing here in the quarterfinals, so let's just see who wins the Summer League. Constantine's fully healed, good for him. It would end up being the Milwaukee Bucks, so congrats to them. Now let's just go ahead and finish off this offseason here. think I have to wait till the season to do all mentorships. So we'll probably preview all the mentors and stuff like that as we auto-generate this class. In next season, we'll do all of that probably next episode. Gonna face off in game 1 against the Raptors. Here's our final look squad. Sam Hudson's already down 3 overall, probably because he was so bad in Summer League. Lowry and Moody, Baldwin and Zaire Williams. Williams is on a minor injury, I guess. We got Stevens and Johnson. Then we got Stevens and Stewart. I think Stewart's going to start the season over Thorpe. I like Stewart a lot. I like his presence was more felt when he was playing in the Summer League over Thorpe. I give them both a good amount of minutes. But kicking off against the Rockets, who did not sign Scotty Barnes. That's what we're going to be doing to start off next episode, which will be coming out soon. And I'll see you then.